Hello and welcome to another episode of Stream City. What have we been up to this week? Well, watch and find out. I've made a few tutorials recently, the first of which being a U-Haul, which I've now dotted about the suburbs a little bit. That's a fun tutorial to make if you have any houses in your city. I also designed and made an Amazon Prime delivery van. That was quite a fun build to integrate into the city, and it's not even a suburb specific build. I mean, this thing can pretty much go anywhere. I mean, anybody could get a delivery, not just the suburbs, so that's a cool all-rounder that got added to the city this week. And not to mention, we also have Papa John's, which is a fine addition to what I'm going to call kind of like the high street-ish area of the suburbs, but this once again isn't suburb specific. I even toiled with the idea of putting it over onto my regular high street on the opposite side of the city. But all of that is simply the beginning. Here's what happened afterwards. Okay, step 1. Denny's has to go. I'm very sorry. Denny's, goodbye. We have comic books to read. So after removing Denny's and grabbing the comic book store and placing it strategically next to Papa John's, who doesn't love a bit of Superman and a slice, after repairing the comic book store, which didn't require too much work, we move over to the graveyard. The graveyard basically just has some wall problems, which is easily fixed with a little bit of diorite, love it or hate it, and some iron. Oh, and I did also fix the path that kind of leads from the lower half of the graveyard to the upper half of the graveyard as well, although it does require a little bit more work too, as you will see later on. We add a pathway around the Simpsons house, around the graveyard, we join the suburbs into the city with the path, we also make the wall separating the suburbs and the city a little bit taller and a little bit fancier. Then we grab the karate studio and we are placing it right next to the comic book store, because who doesn't love both karate and comic books? Exactly. I'm waiting. I don't even see anybody holding their hand up. Everybody loves karate and comic books. So after sticking it next to the comic book store, adding a wall, we're done. Now, I'm refining the paid car park, but I'm not 100% certain that it's going to stay here. I actually like the design of it. I even added a little bit of a pay point, and I like how it looks. I just don't think it's going to be there permanently. Then we grab KFC. The modern KFC, as fun as it is to have a chicken wing for the city, we are placing this next to the car park, which may or may not be leaving. After fixing some road markings and a bit of the car park, and the banners are actually a big deal as well. I didn't even fix all of the banners looking at this now, but I had to fix the banners. There's some wall problems around the back, kind of extend the wall on the side, and the car park just needs basically just refining a little bit. We move over to what I will call the main street. I'm not 100% sure what to call this, but it's like the main street that leads in and out of the city. I fixed that a little bit. I added a bit of a path on the opposite end of the outer suburbs, and I also, again, I'm just doing a little bit of work with the big, giant, really long street. The cemetery, as I said, it required a little bit more work, so just some lantern repair, some roof repair, and it's looking pretty good. There's not too much left to do here. I added a little bit, because this is kind of a dead space area, not the game, we added some trees and a couple of benches to the outside of the cemetery. I'm also thinking of some sort of statue to add out here as well, but I'll have to design that. So the trees, I was quite happy with them. We've got a little bit of variance with them. I'm kind of leaving them as is. I quite like them looking a little bit messy. So after that, the next thing is, again, kind of shaping this square area, as I call it. I actually figured it out, and I'm quite happy with the design. So I have finally figured out how I want to lay this area out, and we will talk about it a little bit later. So after just adding a road, I decided to add a wall to the supermarket car park, and then I headed over to the high street on the opposite side of the city looking for builds. I didn't really find anything that I was too interested in. So, coming back to this area here, I decided that this little square is going to have two streets. One on the left, one on the right. The streets will have stores and shops either side, which we'll see a little bit later. I also figured that I want to delve into raised hills and raised bits of land. I don't want everything flat, so I was experimenting a little bit with a slight incline hill here. So this is going to lead us out of the suburbs and towards the school. I decided that the school is actually going to remain in the relative position that it is in now, and you can see me experimenting with some houses. We'll see a little bit more of that later. I realise I'm all over the place, but this is how I build. So after an intense battle with ADD, I head back over to what I'm calling the square area, although it's not really an accurate term for it, or at least I don't think it is. You let me know. On this little particular part of the square, the first street, we have the dentist and the milkshake store. On the opposite side of the street, I am now currently constructing. Do you guys know what this build is? This is a previous build of mine, but I didn't manage to copy it over. I do wonder whether you guys know what it is or not. It's going to reveal itself very, very soon when I make the banners. I'm hoping you do, because I actually really, really like this build a lot. And it's a good fit for the suburbs as well. Oh, can you game? I'm sure that you guys have already figured out by now. So we have GameStop. GameStop seems like a really nice addition because of the actual... Not only do we want a game store, number one, I mean, let's get real here, but it's also just kind of like, it fits the general vibe, like the color scheme, the cleanness, the crispness, the kind of shape. It fits in every single facet here. So I had to make this from scratch. Of course, I have made this build before. I designed it however many years ago now, but I actually did tamper with it ever so slightly. The outside is ever so slightly different. I don't think it is as big on the inside, but the interior has actually changed completely. We've went for a completely different layout, and I'm quite happy with it as well, actually. So we have the till area just at the back center, as you can see. I'm adding some display cases, one on the left, two on the right. I'm trying to keep it a little bit asymmetrical. You can see that I'm kind of tampering with designs like, oh, what do I want to put in these display cases, because sometimes at game shops, not even necessarily GameStop, we don't have GameStop in the UK, but you know, we used to. I mean, we still have Game, but we used to have a bunch of different game stores, and they'd have like display cases with cool little collectibles and stuff that you can buy, and sometimes like mannequins and stuff like dress as different game characters. So I've opted to kind of go with just some suits of armor, and on the left here, just an armor stand with a dragon head on it. I'm adding a couple of aisles for games, and I decided to make like a little plushie bin, and you can see that I'm decorating with like note blocks and different tables and different music discs. I mean, they actually look like game discs if you're one of those people that buy discs. I am, by the way. And I'm just adding some windows and kind of just refining the inside of the build, adding some paintings, and it turns out to be... I really like the inside of it. It's simple but effective. I really love the inside of GameStop, and it just fits in nicely with this particular part of the city. Oh, not to mention, I added a lamppost on the corner, and it's just a perfect little lamppost. I used the same one for Papa John's. So after successfully recreating GameStop, I decided to put some research and development into some townhouses, or not even necessarily townhouses per se. These houses have to achieve a few different things. First of all, I want to be able to stack them next to each other. I want to be able to use them as terraced houses. The reason for that is that I want to be able to jam them all together on this hill next to each other, and possibly even have the same on the opposite side, and I want them to look good whilst doing it. I want them to also look relatively realistic. I mean, it wouldn't be unreasonable to see a house like the end result of this one out in the wild somewhere, depending upon where you live, of course. So I'm using bricks, I'm using more natural looking materials such as cyan terracotta, I'm using white stone or quartz, I'm using diorite, I'm using all sorts of materials that you might actually see in an actual house construction. I don't know about, quartz exactly, but you guys get the idea. It at least looks like something that you might see. Hence why I'm using the chains and carpet, lanterns, I'm putting plants around. I've added a basement that you can see a little bit of a window for. I'm using birch on the inside just because the outside feels a little bit dark. I've added a drain pipe. I've kind of settled on that little design for the little overhang / walk up into the house. Is it called a stoop? I'm not 100% certain what to call that part of the house. I want to say stoop, but I might be wrong about that. I'm trying to make the outside of the building quite interesting as well. I'm trying to texture it using stairs. I'm adding the window boxes, which will eventually have flowers. I'm trying to vary the windows a little bit as well. The ones on the right won't look like that one on the left. I'm trying to give realistic dimensions to the inside of the house as well. Not only that, I'm using a different material for the roof. I'm using blackstone stairs, which are a great addition to this game. Using diorite underneath the roof, connecting it together using some quartz slab, and I'm really liking the blend of materials here. You can see that little window is different on the front left than the others. I'm even using a different material for the middle part of the roof. I'm using some deep slate stairs, and I think it works really well. I mean, it's quite a safe choice of materials, really. It is literally just like bricks and then a mixture of white, black and grey, but it works really well. We even have bins outside and railings, and I don't know, it ends up, I'm really happy with the end result of this. I haven't made the back of it yet because I'm not 100% certain yet whether I'm going to add gardens to them. I might, but this has sort of served its purpose so far in that I wanted to research how it looked to stack a house that I was relatively happy with next to the same version of that house, but on a hill. And I think that this is actually really cool. So I think I've achieved my goal, and I may even refine this further, but I'm really happy with this. I think that this looks awesome. Once again, thanks to the power of ADD, we are focusing on a slightly different part of the suburbs. I thought that a Chinese takeaway would look really good next to GameStop, and after a little bit of tinkering, I think that I was right. So after a little bit of casual street repair and grabbing the moped from in front of Papa John's, porting it over here and recolouring it, using a little bit of yellow concrete and some blackstone stairs, and a different pressure plate on top of the delivery bag, I think that that fits in really nicely. And that kind of concludes the opposite half of the street. So coming back to what I'm calling Main Street, the long street, I'm just implementing a little bit of a path and a little bit of a road, just extending that over to give me an idea of some dimensions. Across the back of the houses, I've put a bunch of pods on and planted a bunch of trees, so to kind of give the houses a bit more privacy, to include a little bit more nature, a little bit more variance, I've planted a mixture of oak and birch trees, and luckily they have, some of them are a little bit different, some of them are very similar, but it actually turns into quite a nice, it's not exactly a hedgerow, but the idea is very similar. So in amongst all of these trees that you can't quite see, there's ferns, there's tall grass, there's moss carpet, and there is also some stone pressure plates and some buttons. We'll be taking a better look at this area in a future video, as I know what I want to do with this particular area, and it's going to be quite cool. It'll probably be featured in the next Stream City video. At this point in time, I'm kind of figuring out what I want to do next, and I finally come back to the hill street that I was working on and realized that all of these houses have to be moved over. They're just completely in the way. So after moving a bunch of houses and this giant mansion here, which is taking up half of the street, we come back over and I start doing some messing about. So I finally decided that these houses right here, I'm happy with them. I like them. I think that they're good. So they're staying in the city, and I'm going to clone them over to the opposite side of the street. Now, am I going to make some of these different? Only maybe, really. Like, a lot of these houses are meant to look the same. Like, a couple of differences could be with the roofs and maybe the flowers and maybe the bin arrangements and some... maybe just like how the layout of the stoop is, but for the most part, these are meant to look identical. So I think that they look good next to each other. I think that the way that they have been placed or will be placed, and at this point in time, I'm also figuring out just like how to lay the street out, like what sort of incline I want the road to be and such, and whether I want kind of like a messy pavement. I'm kind of figuring that all out at the moment. But doing the opposite side of the street, I kind of realized that they look great stacked next to each other, so I may vary them, and I may just leave them exactly how they are. Leaving a little bit of an alleyway next to the karate studio, and then slowly but surely raising these houses up in an incline and setting them backwards as well. I'm also making it different to the opposite side of the street, so they're not in a row like the suburb houses exactly. They're set a bit backwards, one set higher than the other side, like it's the street is a bit different, you know. I don't want it to be perfect, and after like adding a bit of a gutter to the street and adding some stairs and some pathways up and down the street, I realized that I needed to move on to something else. I needed to move on to the back gardens. I am going to give them back gardens, although these are all going to be pretty much the exact same. So, the gardens. We're keeping it simple. The gardens are going to be lower than the entrance out onto them, so we have to make some steps. They're all going to have a little bit of a patio area. They all have a fence, and I'm using spruce planks for that with some oak fence on top. On the patio area, we have a little bit of a seating area, a little table, and a parasol. And next to that, a little barbecue. Very, very simple. Some potted plants on the patio with some bushes. Off to the side, some podzol with some tall flowers. And other than that, after making sure that the boundaries were all done and improving the railings and adding some stones and making the bushes better, we have a tiny little shed in the corner. There's not too much in it, and it's got a slanted roof, which is pretty cool. Inside the shed, you will find a crafting table and a lantern, and I added some stripes of lime terracotta to the grass. So after doing that, very, very happy with the garden design. It's very simple, it's quite dynamic, it's an interesting garden. I realised that the first house is not allowed a garden, unless we put it to the side, which is something that is possible. We'll think about that later on, but I had to grab that garden and I had to apply it to some of the other houses. And there we go, that is about as much as we are going to be doing in this episode. And that is that for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want these getting too long. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please do remember to subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell next to the subscription button. If you have seen a build in this video that you like, odds are it has a tutorial. Check out the description below and possibly the top of the comment section for the City Builds playlist. That has every single city build that I've ever done in there, so you should hopefully easily be able to find it. And last but not least, if you have any interest in playing in this world and checking out for yourself, channel members get a brand new fresh download link every single time one of these Stream City videos is uploaded, which you can all find if you're a channel member in the community tab. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!